Hi, and welcome to another conversation on Metaconscious Leaders, a growing community framing leadership with greater purpose. We hope that you enjoy these conversations and find them both to be valuable and practical, as well as relevant in your practice as leadership. If you enjoy the conversations, please subscribe, follow, and like, as this does wonders for our algorithms and helps us to enlarge the community and reach larger numbers of people. This week we have a very special guest, so let's get straight on to the conversation right away. I'm delighted to say that our guest today is Peter Matthies, a former venture capitalist and founder of the Conscious Business Institute. Peter started his life at Andersen Consulting, later called Accenture. He then became a principal for one of the world's leading private equity and venture capital firms, Apax Partners Co. And after that, for B Business Partners, which is a 1 billion pan-European VC fund. With all that he had learned, in 2005 he founded the Conscious Business Institute, where he combines his experience in business, finance, and technology with that of our world's wisdom traditions to develop programs for individuals, leaders, and entire organizations to become more conscious, inspiring, and purpose-driven. Peter has worked with organizations of all sizes, including Starbucks, BMW Group, Siemens, Allianz, Intel, and Morgan Stanley. He's the author of 2 books and over 100 articles on business, finance, leadership, martial arts, and technology. He's a faculty member of the Goethe Business School in Frankfurt, serves as a global advisor of the Climate Prosperity Alliance, and is a member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, as well as being a board member on several for-profit and not-for-profit organizations. Peter lives in Santa Barbara, California, where he enjoys his Aikido and sailing and much else besides. So, Peter, welcome, and thank you very much for being our guest today on Metaconscious Leaders.
Thank you, Greg, for the kind introduction. Wonderful to be here.
Brilliant. You're very, very welcome. So, Peter, I think your backstory is particularly interesting and relevant. Can we start there? Because I think that is a wonderful foundation that gives enormous credibility and business insight for then what you've done with CBI, Conscious Business Institute. Can we start? You say a little bit about how you got to the point in 2005 when you had this inspirational idea of setting up Conscious Business Institute.
Yeah, it's a bit of a story, but there's probably a lot of people can relate to. I was always successful being a venture capitalist, having my own software company, but inside I was yearning for something more. There was this itch that I couldn't quite reach, that I knew the business world wasn't what I wanted to live my life for. And so there was always this lack of fulfillment, lack of purpose. I saw that a few people in the business world, maybe 5%, were living like fish in water. They loved what they do and they were usually very successful at it. And then 95% of the people, especially in the companies that we invested in, they just kind of went to work every day and did their job, but there was no full engagement there. There was a lack of purpose there. And I was asking myself the question, why are we building companies in a way where we don't really want to work? And isn't there another way where we can build organizations where people could fully thrive? And what would be possible as an investor if we invest 10, 20, 50 or $100 million into these organizations? How much more effective and how much more money making would it be for an investor? And how much more purpose would be inside an organization? And I didn't just ask that for the people around me. I asked it for myself, basically, because I was missing fulfillment. I was missing purpose. I was asking myself the question, how can I be one of these 5% that really love what they do and be successful at that? And so in 1996, I quit everything. I left my hometown. I, with my then fiancée, moved to California. I got involved in a lot of Native American traditions, spiritual traditions that completely changed my view of the world, how I was seeing it before, the wisdom traditions. And then I got back with these insights and said, we need to bring them into our world. So I became a venture capitalist, joined Apax Partners, and then tried to bring them into organizations in a more subtle way, which was not easy or possible at all. So I decided in 2003 to leave everything behind, basically to find a different way for myself to work and live, and find a way for the world to work and live in a more sustainable, life-giving and full way. And so packed 2 suitcases, left everything behind, moved to Santa Barbara, opened shop here, had a great time. And then I said, holy cow, what am I doing? And about a year later, I had the insight in the plane that came to me where it says Conscious Business Institute. And I said, that's what I want to do with my life. And so that was the starting point of the institute.
Well, there are some parallels there with myself, although mine weren't nearly as dramatic in terms of the outcomes as yours. For me, I had a health condition which was a repetitive strain injury in both of my arms, which at times incapacitated me and went on for about 18 months. I wasn't able to work. I had to close down everything, and that put me on a journey, which was, what is happening? What am I doing up here? How am I framing reality, which is causing a perfectly normal, healthy body to malfunction in the form of repetitive strain injury?
Yeah, and we see that everywhere. It's our body is talking to us, whether it's through physical issues that you experienced or through mental dissatisfaction, frustrations, lack of fulfillment, or through emotional issues where we get a burnout or something and it's just not working anymore. And I feel we're in a time right now in particular where all these, I call them inauthenticities, where we don't live our authentic life, are being squeezed to the surface. And I'm working with so many people that have worked in this particular, in a normal way for so many years, and now it's just not working anymore because it's a time where these things are being pushed to the surface and we are asked to reconsider and really live out our authenticity.
Yeah. And on the one hand, it's an invitation, isn't it? And on the other hand, it's an imperative.
Yes.
Which is that if we don't act, if we
Yes.
don't change, if we don't transform, then life becomes even more challenging.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's really no option to not live authentic. I mean, we can go back. We can go back to sleep for 10 years. We can maybe go back to sleep for 20 years or for the rest of our lives on an individual level. But it will knock on the door again, maybe when we close our eyes at night and it gets quiet and something inside of us stirs and says, come on, something is not quite right. And of course, on a global level, we don't have the time anymore. You know, we're facing harsh consequences for humanity.
Yeah. So that's the context, isn't it, within which this invitation, this paradigm shift is actually occurring, isn't it? There's this lovely idea of a paradigm shift takes a long time to come about, but when it happens faster than anyone can imagine. And it's as if there's a tipping point that arises and then things happen very quickly. So if you think about your conscious CBI established in 2005, 20 years ago, you've been doing a lot of groundwork. You've been working very hard, perhaps below the radar for a lot of people. But at some point, it's just going to become the norm.
Yeah, I would surely hope so. I mean, I was one of the early birds. There was conscious business wasn't out there at the time. You couldn't Google it. There was nothing there. So I received this insight from somewhere about conscious business, and I said, "Oh my God, what is this?" And I need to do that with my life. And at the same time, or a little later, Fred Kaufman, he wrote the book, and then conscious capitalism came along. There was this first phase where people were getting these downloads about we need to do business in a different way. So that's what I call the first phase. The second phase is then now, what is this thing? So what is conscious business and how do we create a conscious business? What are the programs that we need to do in order to get there? And now I think we're at the third phase where it's time to come together and to get serious. Where these different strands of conscious business, conscious capitalism, conscious leadership, whatever you might call them, are finding a common ground and where we become a force in the world to put this out together and become a stronger voice that people can resonate with. And they do. I mean, whenever we work with organizations, I just got a feedback from a program participant, and it brings me to tears because it is so much of a yearning out there to transform the way we work, to find a different way, more fulfilling, life-giving way to live and work. There is so much yearning out there. So on an individual level, people are ready, but many don't know about these other options. And on an organizational level, they keep trying to keep doing what they're doing, organizations. But when we work with people inside organizations, like, oh my God, this is completely different. Thank God that we have these conversations here.
Yeah, no, you're definitely having an impact already. And when I started off with the idea of metaconscious leaders, there was a bit of a campaigning voice inside me, which was saying, we've got to get out there and beat a drum. But when I started looking for people to talk to, I found loads. And I'm actually really encouraged and have become much more optimistic about what is happening in the world that is really transformational. And so this idea about a paradigm shift really does come home to me. And I think to myself, no, we are approaching a tipping point. And it's quite evident by the conversations that I have in business leadership and team development and so forth within companies that people are ready to listen. So let's get back to CBI, Conscious Business Institute, and what you're doing, because that's what we really want to spend the time doing just now. So 2005, you established CBI. Did you have a vision? Did you have a particular thing in mind?
Yeah, I had a download that came to me in that plane where I had this insight about Conscious Business Institute, about 4 pillars, about leadership development, about actually creating a fund, an investment fund, about research, and about management consulting, like developing organizations, and sort of an idea of what this could be. But how, I didn't have any idea. So we pulled a few people together. Actually, within 2 months, I had 16 people on board. They were high caliber people. And they said, let's roll. This sounds really, really groundbreaking. And then we sat around the table and said, what are we going to do here? What is really conscious business? And so we ended up working with about 4 people of these 16. I went into organization and said, let's just do it. Let's just go in and do something different. That worked to some extent, but not on another level, because people were still out of power. Their monies wasn't paid. There were conflicts. All these things sort of persisted, which is an important conversation to have at some point, why that happened. So we pulled the brake. I pulled the brake and I said, I need to retreat. What is really conscious business? So for about 3 years, I sat down and pulled together all the wisdom traditions that I've learned, researched some more business principles. There was the approach, the Conscious Business Institute approach was downloaded to me. I received that. And out of that, I created a system, a model that we now take out into the world, of bringing this idea of conscious business down onto the ground that's measurable, that's scalable, and that can reach thousands of people if we want to. But the whole thing took about 7 years for me to get ready, develop. And it was a very difficult time with a lot of tears and fear, whether this is just wasting the most precious years of my life or whether it's actually going to go somewhere. Thank goodness it did, but it's still not easy. I mean, it's every time we speak with individuals, of course, everybody thinks they're conscious. I've not ever heard somebody say, "Oh, I'm not conscious." Everybody thinks they're authentic. And so it's very difficult for people to understand what the limitations are of their own behaviors and what kind of problems they could cause. So it's a little bit like telling somebody how an orange tastes when we go in. And that's very difficult. Once they taste the orange, they go, oh, yummy, this is different. But from the get-go, it's not quite easy.
You persuaded some large companies, and in particular, you highlight a case study with BMW Group, who've been running it for 6 years. So clearly they've tasted the orange and they really like it and getting very good feedback from their staff members.
Yeah, and I still work to this day. I still work with people from those projects, and they still call me up and say thank you. I still every day I'm thinking about these programs. So it's very impactful, but we didn't sell conscious business to them. We sold problems to their solutions. So together with BMW, we sat around the table and said, what is the kind of leadership that you would like to establish in this organization going forward? And out of this came certain parameters for leaders. There was self-directed, self-leadership was an important part of it. Dealing with the global changes was a part of it. Transformational mindsets, all those kind of things came to the table. And then around that, we created a program that would fulfill that, which of course included many of the Conscious Business Institute approaches. But it was a custom program for BMW that could fulfill what they were looking for. And if I look at our projects, that's essentially what we're doing. Mostly we don't do conscious business, but we provide solutions for people's problems inside organizations. And in the end, it always comes down to consciousness anyways.
And so what is consciousness for you? How would you describe consciousness? Because it's a word that's commonly used and bandied around, and many people have different interpretations or understandings of the word. What's yours? What would you put on it?
My God, this is a very big question. So consciousness on a low level for me is awareness. There's an awareness, but that's a very mundane. I'm aware of certain things, of my emotional behaviors, all those kind of things. Being conscious about my habits, my behaviors. Consciousness on the higher level is period. Consciousness is the isness out there that can't be put into words. That's maybe the higher level. When I look at a conscious business and define that, for me, it is there's no conscious business, but there are conscious individuals inside an organization. The conscious individuals are aware of their behaviors and their actions and the ripple effect they have on themselves and on the people around them. And once you look at conscious business from that perspective, you can see that the ripple effect these days is not very positive. And so the level of consciousness with which people operate is not very high on average. So if we can hire the consciousness about, what's really my ripple effect, like the Native Americans 7 years ahead, 7 generations ahead, what's the ripple effect on my own well-being, on my own behavior? What's the ripple effect on my team? What's the ripple effect if I push my company to bring 20% more? What's really happening there? What's the effect on the earth? What's the effect on the planetary resources? All those kind of things. So it's a broad subject, broad topic, but to me, everything comes down to consciousness, sustainability, purpose-driven, all those kind of things, servant leadership. To me, all they come down to consciousness in the end.
And the benefit to business is that they end up with more efficient, more productive businesses. And I suspect from your point of view, you can see the value from an investor's point of view as well, when businesses are more conscious because they're able to operate better in complex, shifting environments. Is that right?
Yes. If you look at the studies, whether it's purpose-driven business or more aware or human-centric organizations that put the individual in the center, they all outperform the competitors by a mile, really by a mile. So if an organization can do that, the performance is better. And still, most people don't do it. Secondly, if you look at studies like IBM did a global CEO study with 768 people, and they were asking, what is the ideal organization that you want to build? And the agreement was from these global CEOs, they all want to build an inspiring, really people-centric, cool organization that has a purpose, that makes a difference in the world, all those kind of things. We are, as humans, all driven by the same things. So there's a pull. When we open the door and speak about the possibility of creating this kind of organization, the doors open because we all want the same. And there's a pull towards, if we can build that, how cool would that be? And so there's an enormous amount of energy being released inside an organization if we do that. So the question becomes more, why don't we do it? What keeps us away from it? Why do we go back to these old push ways and fear-based ways of operating? And how can we move from there to a more life-giving approach?
Why do we do that, do you think, Peter? Why do we keep reverting back to the fear-based operations?
There are particularly one reason, because we're educated in our world that there's not enough. I mean, our entire system, and you're familiar with that probably, it's a fear-based model. So everybody of us in our world is basically being grown up in an environment in our culture that tells us there's not enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough money. We have to do more in order to earn money. We have to be better. If we don't get an A, then this will happen. So it's a lot of, you are not enough as a person, and so you have to do something or be something different in order to make it in the world. It's a survival principle. And it's hardwired in our brain with our fight and flight mechanism that this kicks in. Yeah, so we are hardwired to fall back to this lower level of consciousness where we operate from fear and from this scarcity mindset. And whenever we do, we jump on a model that we call the model of dominant subservience, because we need to dominate the scarce resources. And then we operate from this way without even being aware of it, that we push energy. And we can see it perfectly well in our president here. He has it down to a T, this model. So you can become very successful with this model in the BD world. You can become president of the biggest nation, maybe one of the most important nations still, maybe, in this world. But the ripple effect that we are creating when we're operating from this model of dominant subservience is severe on ourselves and on the people around us.
and on the climate and on the natural world that is our home, in which we're interconnected and interdependent.
Yes, exactly.
In your book, this wonderful book, Plan B, which I very much recommend. It's a wonderful book. It's practical. It's well researched. It's beautifully written. I recommend it. In there, you talk that businesses often fail, or projects within businesses often fail, because the traditional mindset is one of linear thinking, a time plan, get a strategy for change, push it out. But then you say that transformation is not linear, and we need transformation. And we can't be doing with straightforward incremental growth and change. We have to transform at this point in the era or in the human history that we are finding ourselves at this moment in time. And that requires a shift in consciousness, a paradigm shift in consciousness. How would you describe that shift in consciousness?
I oftentimes give an example of the Earth being flat and round. So if we think about change and transformation, this is an important point, because every company that we talk to thinks about transformation, wants transformation, but they're really not doing transformation. And it'll fail in most cases because they're doing change instead of transformation, and they think it's the same. Change, if you look at the world as flat mentality, is if we go westward to reach, or eastward if we want to reach East India. If we have a flat world mentality, it would not make sense to sail westward in order to reach East India. It just doesn't make sense. And then, lo and behold, Christopher Columbus comes around because he believes in Copernicus and the Earth being round. And he said, why don't we sail westward in order to reach East India? And so there's one different thought, one different consciousness, an expanded consciousness that changes everything, that provides the possibility to go westward to reach a new world, which he did. So this is the most powerful insight that organizations can have at this time, I believe, because change is linear and change takes a lot of work. We have to do this, we have project management, we have to do that, there's pushback and all these kind of things. If we have a consciousness change, if we do transformation, it requires one single thought to be different. It doesn't require work. It requires one different thought, and the whole ship steers into a different direction. So the consciousness shift that we can have in these times is first and foremost that we can actually thrive more as an organization when we focus on the individual's well-being and on the planet's well-being. If we really focus on that, no backdoor about profits and stuff, no thinking about profits. If we actually focus our thoughts on that and build a company around that the profits will follow. Yeah. And people say, oh, yeah, I believe that. But do you truly believe when stuff hits the fan, do you still focus on the person in front of you when the client falls away? Or do you go, oh, we need to save the client? I still do. And for that, there's one thing that's really, really powerful that can shift everything, is to understand who we're here to be during this lifetime, that it's not a person in our 3D world and we have to make it, but that we're really a spiritual being having a physical experience, that we are part of something higher here. This one thought can change everything.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think there you bring in the personal aspect as opposed to the corporate aspect. There's this thing around which is, business is business. Well, actually, business is nothing but a gathering of people who are acting in accordance with their level of consciousness. And the business isn't going to transform unless the individuals transform.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. That's great. We always say a business is not about business; it's about people, ultimately. Yeah, and I completely agree with that. Yes.
And what about the individual within a business which isn't doing any of these developments? Because some people feel trapped in unconscious businesses. Let's call them that for the moment. And yet they also have can find some sustenance in what you're talking about.
Yes, I mean that's also a very good and very practical question. First of all, what you just said earlier is really important as well. There is no systems transformation without personal transformation. It's what Deepak Chopra says. So if we consider we are building a new system and a new organization, a new team, then we must include personal transformation. We must start with ourselves. And so the buck stops with ourselves as a leader. If we're willing to do the work and if we are looking at these things, then there's some transformation that can happen. If we don't, then we'll keep the thermometer at its level, and the company won't change much. So when we have individuals that are a little stubborn and closed off, honestly, I don't like working with them anymore. I'm like, don't waste my time. There are many others who are open. Call me when it's getting more painful, quite frankly. However, they sit in our program, so we can't always walk away from it.
Well, talking to in addressing individuals, I mean, because we can be addressing corporates, we can also be addressing individuals. Addressing individuals who are listening to this, who may feel themselves trapped in an organization, I would recommend you get Plan B, and this book here. I'd recommend you get Plan B and you implement it at a personal level, because we can be the change that we want to see in the world. Until I transform, then that around me isn't going to transform. When I transform myself, then everything around me appears different. My experience of it is different. So even at a personal level, I think what you're talking about is of immense value. It's not just at a corporate level, it's a personal level. And of course, that's a ground up transformation that has an impact at a company level and business level.
Yeah, and maybe just as a litmus test, any level of frustration that we have, any level of conflict that we have in our life, any level of something is not working and can't these guys work harder and all those kind of things, or my job is dissatisfying, there's a level of consciousness that is in resonance with that. So if you think, I got it all together, I just need to work hard and I just need to do it, and this is all rubbish, look at your life and look at, are there any areas of frustration? Are there any areas of conflict? Are there any areas of fear, of worry? If there are, then probably it would help to look at some topics and expand the consciousness, because one level of consciousness can take that away.
So what does Conscious Business Institute do? You have a number of programs. You have a Conscious Business Master Program that is coming up shortly, starting in September, I believe. So do you want to talk us about that? Talk us through that, Peter, because this is something practical that people can engage with, whether I think at a personal level or a corporate level.
Yes, yeah. And we have a lot of practitioners. We have a lot of people who are rethinking what they do with their work. And we have a lot of people that are in the business world and are leaders inside organizations in this program. But let me step back to this question that you asked before. What do we do? Because I think it provides the context. What we do not want to do is shotgun approach, and here's a solution, do a workshop here, and then everything's going to be hunky-dory. What we want to do is we provide a systematic approach for organizations to go from A to B, to turn an entire organization around from A to B. And to do that in a way that makes this whole soft thing about humans, about culture, about leadership manageable. So you can know where you are and you can manage it. It makes it measurable, so you know where your company really stands, and it makes it scalable, so you can reach out to 10,000 people if you want to. So that was the intention, and that's what we've created. So we have a framework of how the organization looks like. We have a culture assessment where we can look at where an organization stands, what the leadership does, and people get their dashboard in terms of where do my people stand, what do they really think and feel, what can I do in order to be a better leader, build a better culture. Then we go in with our programs that we offer in many, many ways, and then we scale it out with our AI coach in the pocket and reach many more people inside an organization. So that it becomes really a system, like an SAP system for the soft side of the business that people can implement in their organization. And that's
Brilliant.
very unique in the world, I believe. So the master program we've developed because we've had so many people ask us, is that a methodology that I can use as a coach? Can I be trained up as a coach? Can I be trained up as a consultant to be part of this? Or can I bring this into my organization as a leader, as an entrepreneur? And how can I learn this approach? How can I learn my leadership skills so I can bring this into the organization that I'm in? So that's what the program does. It provides the certification in our approach, but it really is it's a 10 months journey that is just unlike anything else. It's life-giving, it's life-changing. I just received another email from somebody participant and said, this was absolutely life-changing, transformative for me. I have not believed that a business title in a program could be that touching and transformative. Yeah.
I haven't done your program yet, okay, but I was part of delivering a program which wasn't dissimilar, but it was on a much smaller. It was a 5-day and it was called Apex, Achievement of Professional Excellence. And it was a program that didn't have a program. It was just 5 days, and it evolved out of the needs and emotions and dynamics of what happened in the group. And it was extremely difficult to sell, but everybody who engaged in it, and some very large companies in the UK did engage with it, they kept on coming back for more because they tasted the orange. So what I would say about your program, from everything I can see, is it's very similar. Sorry, it's very similar. It's of a similar type until you taste it, until you actually consider the earth as being round as opposed to being flat, to use your metaphor. It'll make a phenomenal difference. So I support you in that.
Well, thank you.
In that proposition.
That sounds a fun program. 5 days without any program, and then create from create from nothingness. Right?
I'll talk you through it. There's quite a bit of provocative therapy in there as well, but it was always incredibly productive and transformational.
There's a I oftentimes use an image in our slide decks when we speak to people. There's the circle, if we want to imagine like the knowledge of the whole world, the whole universe. And we know what we know is maybe just a sliver, is maybe 0.1% or something, 0.001%, I don't know. And we know that we don't know. I know that I can't fly a plane. I know that I can't perform heart surgery. So there's a bigger part of I know that I don't know. But the music gets really interesting when we look at the space where we don't know that we don't know, because that's where transformation happens. And so, of course, we don't know what we don't know, so we can't say what that is. So when you speak about this program where you go in and provide these new insights or create from nothing, you're entering that space of we don't know that we don't know. And that's where magic happens.
Yeah. Well, I would love to share more about how that was constructed, because I think it's something which I think has quite a unique place in development. So what are the sorts of people who would be interested or who would be particularly suited to your Conscious Business Masters program?
I would say there are 4 categories of people. The first ones are leaders inside organization, managers and leaders inside organizations that want to learn how to lead in a better way, in a more that's more aligned with themselves, more authentic, more life-giving for their teams, want to build inspiring cultures. The second one is entrepreneurs who want to build their companies in a more fulfilling way. So those kind of go together. The third one are coaches and practitioners who want to use these approaches to bring them into their clients and move from a one-on-one coaching approach to a one to maybe 1,000 people approach, right? To expand and work together with us. And the last ones are those who are, I'm in a job transition. I've quit this leadership position. I'm looking for what I want to do next. I want to go out as a practitioner. Maybe they're rethinking their lives and have made this jump, or they're looking to make this jump out of the traditional world to something that's more fulfilling and authentic.
And to give a little bit of texture and context to the program, people are developing, are participating in this group from all around the world, and you have a platform on which people can interact and have live sessions and so forth, and the option for a live session as well, I think, at the end. Is that right?
Yeah, we looked at how people learn in the best way, and what we've created is this flipped classroom setting where we have our online programs, which kind of are the guideline that moves this forward. So people learn, people get the insights in their own learning speed. They can take it walking, they can take it at home, and then they get reflections, they get personality assessment, they get all those kind of things, exercises, and then they meet with their peer groups, which makes it very personally fulfilling. They're very close groups. And then every 2 weeks, basically, we meet for a webinar where we come on and where we have exchange and move the ball forward, answer questions, build community, those kind of things. So there are different touch points. And lastly, we have faculties sessions with global future leaders, future thinkers. We have with psychics that come in that totally bring in some good spirit there. So it's a very, very colorful program. Yeah. It's very powerful. And at the end, we usually do an in-person retreat somewhere in Spain or Portugal where we can all get together.
Brilliant. So the links and further details I'll put regarding this program in the notes, and anybody who's interested, reach out to me or reach out to Peter. His contact details will be in the notes as well. So encourage anybody who is interested to pick up that and ask for further information.
Thank you.
Philosophy, Peter, philosophy. Do you go there? And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder, have we lost our way a bit? I suppose we must have done. Humanity must have done, because we wouldn't really be in the place where we are at the moment, flailing around. We have rather lost our way. We've certainly found ourselves in a place where we're not able to address the problems that we are being confronted with now. And we talk about a change in consciousness and a shift in consciousness. And I wonder to what extent this is also a matter of our philosophy being one of materialism rather than materialistic, a physical philosophy. In other words, consciousness is an epiphenomenon of the brain. It arises out of the brain, and the body is really just a biological machine, as opposed to an alternative philosophy, which is one in which consciousness is fundamental and all things that are physical arise out of that consciousness, which in fact is what quantum mechanics tells us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel that this underpins our culture, our institutions, our legal framework, our discourse. So even where individuals, and so many of us, do talk about what is more than mind body, the systems that we operate within don't have room for it.
No, they're not designed that way, and they don't make space for that. But again, we've talked about it. If we look at the spiritual component, this higher component, there's a pull that we can feel. When we open the door to this conversation, there's a transcendence that happens for people that allows them to go there, and it's there's a pull. Most people really, really feel pulled to go there. You asked why we're in this place. I think it comes back when we go through our teachings to what we call the model of dominant subservience, which has been running our life, our culture, our society since 8,000 years, basically. And so all the institutions, whether it's governments or schools or businesses or even our personal relationships, are infiltrated with this model of dominant subservience, which is a fear-based model, scarcity-based model. And it comes from our original fear that we have of being not enough, of being not safe, of being not protected by the tribe, basically from tribal times. And as a consequence, we have these we call them existential fears. I'm rejected. I'm not safe. I don't have enough power to defend myself, basically. So these three fundamental fears. And they are lurking and slurking around for every one of us, are ready to get triggered, and then they fire up, and our entire behavior is steered by those. And if you look at the origins of this materialism, it basically tells us there's not enough, we are not enough. And in order to have enough, money has become the representation. So the physical world has become the representation of becoming enough, because money has become this representation. And so we think that if we have more power, more money gives us more money. Ultimately, it's about money, I believe, in most cases. Then we'll be safe. Then we'll not be rejected. Then we'll have enough power to do whatever we want. So it basically feeds our or calms our three existential fears. Yeah, but it's only a band-aid, of course. But we're all running after the carrot, thinking that it will fix our problems.
And the carrot is always just here. It's like it's hanging on a stick in front of us, and we never actually get it, no matter how fast we try and reach out. We're a dog chasing its tail.
Yeah,
and
so
when we do
look at many powerful people, presidents and stuff, do they have peace of mind? Are they at peace? Or doesn't seem to me the way. So does it really work, this approach? It does not. And still we follow it every day because we don't know any other way that works yet.
And yet I get the impression that the podcast is called Metaconscious Leaders. So metaconscious, as I use the term here, it's a higher level of awareness. It's not only being conscious, it's knowing that I'm conscious, and it's observing. It's like the observer within the consciousness. And then we're going to have I can be conscious of being conscious of being conscious, and so forth. So there are lots of different layers. But I think that it is the case that most of us, and I see this in business, people are very meta-conscious at times. People act in inspirational ways as if they are incredibly connected. And then it seems to switch off and they go back into their shell, or they go back into habit, or they go back into conforming with the systems that are operating around them, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So it's not that we can't do it, or it's not that we have to learn to do something that we haven't yet learned. It's about doing it as a habit and getting into the discipline of being present with that frame of mind all the time. And all the time might sound quite rigorous and quite an arduous task to achieve. But actually, as it becomes a habit, it becomes quite joyful. It becomes entertaining. Life becomes a lot more like a flow rather than a struggle.
Yeah. I mean, you've clearly done your own journey there.
Well, I'm on it. We're all on it. And I feed on other people just as, on other people's experiences and ideas and so forth. But somebody said, oh, it's all right for you, Greg. You understand these things. I said, no, I don't. We teach what we need to learn, and you will know when I've got it because I won't be here talking about it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I feel we're at all level of consciousness. I mean, everybody just bounce around on these. If there are different levels, let's say there are like 7 levels of consciousness or so. We're operating on all of them. If we get an inspiration in the shower and we're just suddenly connected to something, boom, there is a different level of consciousness there. We are oftentimes not conscious that we are operating on different levels of consciousness. So if we ask ourselves, if I'm operating in all of these levels, which one would I rather operate on? Victim level, anger level, taking responsibility for everything? Or do I want to operate on a level where I'm looking at possibilities of wisdom, of oneness, and those kind of things? So if we can consciously ask ourselves that question and then become aware, like, where do I operate right now? I'm having a conflict with my coworker. Where am I? Am I at the possibility and wisdom level, or am I at the anger and victim level? So if we can just make consciousness conscious, that would make a big difference. If
So
people become aware.
the 7 levels you referred to there, Peter, you've got victim and anger at the bottom, you say, and wisdom and possibility at the top. What are the other ones in between?
I like this IPEC approach, this Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. I could encourage people to look at that. They have developed these 7 levels of consciousness, which I really like and use quite a bit. The lower level is victim and anger. So victim mentality is, well, I can't do anything anyway. Anger is what we see in our American politics. But those two are very toxic. So it doesn't matter whether we operate in either of these, we create negative impact in the world. Then the next level becomes a little bit more positive. It's taking responsibility. But taking responsibility, we can feel is still work. Or I take responsible for, I need to do the finances, I'm doing them. It's still like work. Then the next one is acceptance. I accept the world around me and I make peace with that. The next one is, what's the possibility in this issue? So if I'm being triggered, if I have a conflict, to reframe and say, what's the possibility we're having in front of us here? So it provides a new opening. And then more transcendent ones, which are wisdom and oneness. So good luck with that.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I use them all the time and I try to catch myself. Oh, I'm down there again. How can I move to possibility?
And that's where some of the amusement and humor and joy comes in. In my experience, oh, Greg, you're at that level. Well, I tell you what, where else could I be that would be useful, or that I'd even like to be? And
Yes.
that immediately takes me in another place. And I can very easily find myself, oh, Greg, you're being a victim. Are you being a victim, Greg? Yes. But the moment I cognize that, I'm no longer that,
Yeah.
because
You
the
have a
mere
choice.
recognition of it is transformative.
Yes.
And most of transformation is actually simply awareness.
Yeah. And I think that's what the power of this is, that just the awareness alone can make the transformation. You don't need to fight darkness. You just turn the light on.
Yeah. Yeah. Good analogy. Artificial intelligence, I'm aware of the time. Artificial intelligence, Peter, what are your thoughts on it? Is it conscious?
At this point in time, sentient conscious, I don't feel it is. I don't feel it is. But I just heard an interesting podcast with somebody who's arguing why it will become conscious. My general thoughts on AI is that it is what it is. It is like a friend of mine says, it's a scalpel, and you can do all kinds of things with a scalpel. You can heal people or you can kill people, and people will do, depending on their consciousness, what they choose to do with AI. I just spoke to a friend in London actually, and she says it has been so wonderfully transformative for me. She's been asking GPT questions that she says I would have never. She's a spiritual teacher. I would have never been able to answer these questions in 6 years, and now I can get answers for them. And I've trained up my GPT in a way that it's just beautiful conversations. And so for her, it was absolutely life-giving and beautiful. It can do so many wonderful things, and it will also be very easy to create biological weapons with it, or create something that can easily destroy humanity. So the question is, what do we do with it? Right now, I don't see it very positively, because I don't believe the consciousness of the people that develop that and have the ownership of it is at a point where it goes into a positive direction, because it's about money, about, moving the company forward, and, that's being compartmentalized, what it does to society.
And consolidating power.
And consolidating power, exactly. Is it conscious? The question that this person in the podcast asked, if we exchange one of our little neurons up there in our brain with an electronic one, are we still conscious? Yes. If we exchange two of them, are we still conscious? Probably yes. At what time are we not conscious anymore? So if we look at that from that perspective, then it's just a matter of time until AI will become conscious. Maybe not in the way we are conscious, but in a way that it's like even emotional, but not feeling emotional, but the cognitive side of emotional. But I haven't finalized my thought clearly on this, so and who am I to decide?
I'm involved in some very interesting conversations with certain philosophers and neuroscientists and so forth. So hopefully we'll have some of these people on Metaconscious Leaders sometime soon to discuss these in more detail. And they come from quite opposing views as well. I mean, some people say yes, and other people say definitely not for a long time. And that's not to say that they're not arguing, by the way, that AI is not special. They're saying it is extraordinary, and that we will be able to, in the foreseeable future, have a humanoid or something that looks like and can't be distinguished from a human. But that doesn't mean to say necessarily that it's conscious.
Yeah, maybe I wouldn't be able to answer that question, but can AI make autonomous decisions? That maybe is a question which I feel is very important. And I believe it'll be soon able to do that. And if we look at the current standard, we're the top dog here on this world. We can eat everything. We are the alpha species on this planet. That is likely to change, because if AI is going to be so much more intelligent than human beings, then we're pretty much chicken as compared to humans right now. We'll be the chicken, and AI will be the human. So with its intelligence, which is its ability to make autonomous decisions as the new humans, and we're the chickens, what is it going to do with the chickens? That to me is a question which I'm kicking around.
Yeah, and I think the elements that come into play with me and that I hear which resonate with me are ones that are around creativity, for instance, original thought. AI at the moment is really an incredibly sophisticated, intelligent computer, but that it really is dependent entirely upon its input and its database.
Yeah.
Original thought is not something that it has. And that is something where we as humans and conscious humans will continue to have incredible value. And if we can use AI wisely, then it can enhance our ability to develop as conscious beings. If it's not used wisely, we can find ourselves imprisoned and subservient to it in some fairly ugly ways.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, I think the only way forward for us is to jump in and learn about it and be with it, because it's not going to go away.
It's not going away. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And to bring in the consciousness, to realize that the consciousness that it operates from is past consciousness. It's all what it's been fed.
Yeah. And that's circling it back to Conscious Business Institute. That's another reason why the work that you're doing, Peter, and your institute is doing is so really of enormous value, because we need greater wisdom in order to utilize AI for the benefit of humanity and the natural world, rather than for its further demise. No,
Yeah.
let's rephrase that. Rather than for its further, well, let's just leave it as so that we
Blank.
can use AI for the benefit of humanity and the natural world rather than for anything else.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Peter, thank you very much indeed for your time. Is there anything else that you would like to add about Conscious Business Institute? Where can people find you or get in touch with you, find out about the work? What more would you like to say?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Consciousbusinessinstitute.com is our address, and everything is on there, the book or the master program, consciousbusinessinstitute.com. So if anyone is curious, just in general, I mean, we are in at such a watershed moment, and it can be scary. It can create a lot of anxiety and fear. But I would love to have people think about it as the biggest opportunity that we have in front of us, because it's so exciting what will be created. And the question is, at which level are you playing, and how are you going to play in this global transformation? I believe, and I see it in many evidences, that this is an evolutionary transition, that it's not just us doing it. It's not on our shoulders to make this change, but that we are being guided, and that there's a bigger picture here. And to trust that we are just operating as midwives, and that we're being supported, that we're being lighthouses in the world. And even though you might be standing by yourself, because usually we don't put lighthouses next to each other, it doesn't really make sense. We might be dispersed around the world, that there's a network of lighthouses out there which you can feel that you can belong to. So there's no need to despair. I think it's a bigger picture here. And I would just encourage you to do whatever you feel called to do on the biggest level that you can.
I think that's a wonderful note to finish on. I echo it entirely, Peter. Thank you so much for your time and your contribution and all the work that you're doing as well. Be well. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's wonderful.
I really enjoyed that. From venture capitalist to founding a Conscious Business Institute. Beat that. If you're interested in finding out more about the Conscious Business Master Program being run by the Conscious Business Institute from September, please find the links below. And finally, if you enjoyed this podcast, please help us by subscribing, following, liking, share it with your friends and colleagues, and also leave a comment, as it's really useful for us to know what you're thinking about as well. Thank you for listening and watching. Be well.